All right, we'll get started. It is 5 o'clock. I know we're still missing a couple people like Mr. Schultz, but I know he said he was going to be a little bit late. So we'll get started here. So bear with me as I pop up the Finance Committee. So I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee. It is Thursday, October 29th, 5 p.m. I will take roll call. Mr. Salgado present. Mr. Hoffman,
Present.
Mr. Girl,
Present.
Mr. McDonald,
Here.
Mr. Butita,
Here.
Mr. Fiducia.
Here.
All right. And Mr. Schultz, I don't see him on the line, but he said he was going to be a little bit late on that. So let the record reflect we do have a quorum. Is Mr. Thompson, was there anyone signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you. We'll skip the public comment and move on to our next item, which is a petition for payment for attorney fees for Special States Attorney Terry Eckel. Can I get a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. Girl, second by Mr. Hoffman. Discussion, Mr. Kurlinkus, I'll hand this over to you. It was a part of the packet.
I don't know if somebody wants to jump into the introduction of this, but primarily what this is I'm sure as everyone is aware, Mr. Eckel was appointed a special prosecutor several years ago. I believe it was starting, I can't remember if it was a 2018 or 2019 budget year. It's been expanded a couple of times. He was appointed to represent the sheriff in any 911 negotiations and so on. Anyway, and he also represented him in the lawsuit that was filed and ultimately settled with the sheriff. With the passing of the 2021 budget, since that was done without any controversy, Mr. Eckel has agreed, and we asked him to do this, to end his representation of the sheriff as a special prosecutor. In other words, that he was appointed under a court case in Winnebago County. So he would be submitting an order ending that. We would be an agreed order ending that representation. However, there is a final bill that he wants to present in a petition for attorney's fees for that representation. That's the bill you have this evening, Mr. Salgado.
Yeah, and just for the record, it's about plus or minus $20,000, just for the record, on that. So, are there any questions regarding this motion for petition for payment? Yes, Mr. Butita.
Just curious, what was the total expenditure for to Mr. Eckel over the years?
I don't know if we have that number, Mr. Kurlinkus.
I don't have it right in front of me. No, it's been probably, I'm thinking it's probably been 3 years. So I don't know that we'd have to go back and look up what those bills were.
Yeah. So we'll get you that information, Mr. Butita. I can say it's close to even a little bit over 100,000, I want to say, but that's just from what I recall from all the total of the bills. But we'll get you that answer. Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was my recollection that the sheriff was paying Mr. Eccles out of his budget from the settlement. So this $20,000 was accrued since then, and for what purpose?
The sheriff was going to, as part of that settlement, I think the sheriff, and I don't have the settlement document in front of me, that he was going to, I think, fund a portion of that if it went above and beyond what that appointment was. I'd have to pull the document out to look at that. This is simply time entries, and those were submitted. with the bill. So the bill has the very, very detailed time entries on what the bill covers. And I can see if I can get the settlement up here.
Well, yeah, if you don't know right now, we can, you can get back to me on it. I just recall that he was paying for the service up until the time of settlement. And so if, I didn't see it in the packet, but if it's all detailed since then.
Yeah,
But we
I
should
don't
just
know
confirm that.
I don't know what was sent you in the packet, Mr. Arena, but I do know he sent a very detailed bill, that adding up to the amount that Mr. Salgado mentioned.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
included in the packet what was sent over, Dave. So I think they have the full, all of it.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, if we can confirm what that, because the way I remember it, he was paying for the attorney's fees that had accrued up until the point of the settlement.
Okay. Can we, Mr. Thompson, can we take action to look that up? From my perspective, it is a petition from the court. There's nothing really we can do about it but to pay the fees in this regard. So
Right.
we'll move forward.
I would recommend,
Mr. Kalinkas?
I do. I'm sorry to interrupt, Chairman, but I do have up in front of me the settlement agreement.
Sure.
And number 5, paragraph number 4 says, sheriff will pay all attorney's fees due to Terry Eckel for services rendered as a special prosecutor out of his 2019 budget as amended. And then at that point, the sheriff shall agree to entry of an order terminating the appointment as special prosecutor for the matters regarding the 2018 and 2019 budgets. However, I believe he was reappointed for the 2020 budget. I'm pretty sure he was. So that if that is the amount that is represented in the fee petition, that wouldn't be covered in the settlement agreement.
Mr. Arena, follow up?
So we then need to confirm that he was appointed for the 2020 budget? Are you uncertain about that, Mr. Kalinkas?
I can try to pull it up right now and see if that was extended to do that. As I recall, it was. But if you're asking me, am I 100% certain without looking into the court documents, Mr. Arena, I am not.
No, well, it doesn't, yeah, these are just questions I'd like to be
Sure.
clear by the time we vote on it on the floor. If the sheriff just had committed to pay some of this, then he should, but if not, then obviously we need to pay it. I'm just trying to get the facts straight. Thank you.
Those are valid questions, Mr. Arena. Anyone else have any questions regarding this? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of approving the petition for payment of the attorney fees, please signify by saying aye or raise your
Aye.
hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll follow up, Mr. Thompson, if we could, on those 2 questions with Mr. Kalinkas on essentially the question from Mr. Arena on having for 2020 budget special prosecutor being by the court. So if we could get an answer from
Yep.
Mr. Kalinkas.
we'll follow up on that. I believe the court did appoint for 2020, but we'll verify that.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Our next item is the CFO recruitment, and Mr. Thompson, I'll give you the floor to discuss a little bit regarding this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just an informational item. There's no action required by the committee. I just wanted to inform the committee that I have finalized a job description for the CFO, and it mirrors the ordinance that is in place for the county, with a one minor exception that I will bring back in front of the board in November. It's just a minor revision to the ordinance, but I just wanted to inform the committee that I'm beginning the process of recruitment for the CFO position. The position is in the 2021 approved budget. And I've worked with HR to finalize the job description, and we're beginning that process for recruitment. I will involve a member of the Finance Committee. Mr. Chairman, if you would like to, at some point, appoint a member of the committee to assist me in the recruitment process and sit on the search and screen and the interview panel before I make a final recommendation to the Finance Committee and to the County Board.
Absolutely. I will reach out to the committee members to see if anyone's interested in regards to that.
Thank you. And I've included a copy of the job description in your packet. So if there are any questions.
Sure. Absolutely. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that everybody was privy to it, but Mr. Schultz had sent Mr. Thompson an email questioning the need for a CFO. I think Mr. Thompson's response was interesting and proper as well. Mr. Thompson, can you kind of walk us through that back and forth? The question Mr. Schultz has, well, is this really necessary considering your qualifications and others, and then what your response was?
Well, my response to Mr. Schultz and whoever else was in on that email was just that the position is necessary for an organization our size with a $211 million budget with over approximately 100 different funds in the budget to manage this. The financial piece of the operation, it's critical. I also alluded to Mr. Schultz that over time, I am not going to be adding a lot of staff into county administration, but I believe for an organization our size with the size of budget, a CFO, a financial officer for the county is a critical position. He was also questioning the history of whether or not, I believe he alluded to the fact that he didn't think that the county had ever had a CFO position. We have had a CFO position in the past. He also was asking about the cost of the position, and I responded by saying that in my experience, a good CFO will eventually pay for itself over time by creating additional efficiencies in the organization through smart budgeting. And so I know that it's a high level position for the county, but you hired me as county administrator, not as your CFO. And it's a critical part of the overall management team for Winnebago County. And I think we would be making a mistake by not filling the position. So I'm informing the committee that I am proceeding to start recruitment. Ultimately, the position, once a hiring decision is made, it needs to be confirmed by the County Board of Supervisors. That's why I'm including a member of the Finance Committee to assist me in the process. So ultimately, we have a candidate that will have support from the Finance Committee and also the full County Board.
Thank you,
And,
Mr. If I may, Mr. Salgado.
yeah, go ahead.
I did obviously read your email, and that's the one thing that I want to make sure I heard you say is the fact that a good CFO, he or she, should be able to bring us cost savings nearly equal to or greater than their salary requirements. And I think it's a terrific point that I wanted to make sure it went public.
I will stand by my words, and I have a pretty good idea, pretty good understanding of the budget, having gone through it with Steve over the past month since I've been here. But we need to have someone that is a trained professional accountant, financial person with hopefully a CPA degree, with governmental experience that can help us as a board, you as a board, me as the county administrator advising the board on smart financial decisions. And I would say it's right up there in terms of one of your most important positions in the county structure.
So I'm gonna jump in here real quick. I believe, Mr. Thompson, this has been budgeted. What's the budget amount that we allocated funds to the position?
Well, you actually have two positions budgeted for, and I have at this point no intent of filling the other position at this point. So the salary range of the position is the starting annual salary is $120,000. And this position has been analyzed by the Human Resources Department, and they did a comparative wage study for a position like this in comparable counties in our region, and that was what was determined by Human Resources to be an appropriate starting wage. And though that starting wage is budgeted in the 2021 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And just to go back to, for those that weren't unaware, Mr. Schultz sent out an email just asking questions about why we need to hire a CFO, and his explanation was trying to provide more support for the financial team, the finance team out there. So just wanted to throw that out there. Mr. McDonald brought it out there, but what Mr. Schultz was alluding to. But from my perspective, you know, it is something that we certainly need. As I understand, Mr. Chapman was kind of leading the charge. He had experience a little bit with the funds and that relations. And same with Carla at the time. She was the CFO. We had an administrator, and subsequently she resigned. And then Carla kind of took both hats and roles, if you want to call it, as being the administrator and the CFO on that perspective. And I do believe that, no disrespect to Mr. Thompson at this point in time, but we sort of need someone to actually know the ins and outs regarding the finance piece of it, the funds that are available from a budget perspective, that could provide that, you know, guidance that obviously Mr. Chapman had the historical context of it, but someone that really understands the funding, the non-for-profit, the governmental accounting that relates to that. So with the auditors as well. So no disrespect to Mr. Thompson, I do believe that it would help them, and he would focus on other things that would obviously help the county as a whole. But I'm thinking that it's in the right direction, and hopefully, you know, we can move forward on finding a good candidate, fill that position, and hopefully, you know, can create some efficiencies that we see that we're going to talk about in our next meeting, which is the nursing home, that obviously we can tackle some of these issues that we have at hand. But is there any other questions for Mr. Thompson? Yes, Mr. Webster.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of things, two things real quick. First one, I'm going to ask Mr. Thompson, Pat, how did Steve feel about this, Steve Chapman?
I think Steve is very supportive of a strong administrative team with a county administrator and a financial officer for the county. So I think Steve is very supportive of us being successful in this area. And I can't speak for him, but I believe he supports this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I kind of thought he would. Secondly, you know, before you got hired, and you had the meet and greet, right? And I specifically asked you when we sat down to meet with you, and I said that, which I've said before, I said, you know, everything revolves around the dollar. So I asked you, because I noted that you had worked with some pretty high budgets before, dollar-wise. And I asked you what you thought about our finance department with the number of people we had working there and how that compared with other finance departments. And if I recall, I think you were kind of surprised that we had such a small staff for such a large organization. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I'm very, very surprised. And I think that over time, we need to really focus on that in terms of a strong finance team. I think the staff we have in the office are very good, but yeah, I was very surprised by, I think there's 4 people in the finance office. And for an organization this size, with that size of budget, I'm surprised that they're able to keep up with what they're doing. But so I think that this position will provide a lot of support for the team.
Thank you. Once again, there's nothing that we ever do that one of the questions is, how much is this going to cost us? So it's always all about money, you know, what we can afford, how much we have coming in, how much is going out, and, you know, can we budget things and so forth. So when I met with you the first time, I did appreciate your candor in speaking about the size of budgets that you'd worked with before and your response to my question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And, you know, I know how to manage the organization and but this type of position, I mean, it is so critical for Winnebago County to be successful and to really keep an eye on the finances. And so I mean, like I told Steve, Mr. Schultz, I'm not looking to build a huge management team, but this position is really important. And, you know, Steve Chapman, he has been instrumental in so many years in the area of finance for Winnebago County. But, you know, Steve came out of retirement to help us. And I think, you know, he's not going to be around much longer with us, working for us. And so we need to start focusing on, you know, the future. And part of that is to start building a strong financial team for the county. And I think this is a move in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Webster, thank you. Just let the record reflect, Mr. Schultz has joined the meeting. Yes, how you doing? Go ahead, Mr. Schultz. You're just waving. But anyways,
no, I was just waving, and I apologize for being late. You know, I weighed in via email on my thoughts about this. I think the position could be covered by someone who has a significant amount of competence. We've not had, Mr. Thompson, with respect, you're talking about how we're not going to have Steve much longer, but he came into your role, not the CFO role. He stood in your position that you hold now. And I know that he has strong financial background, but we are adding a position, and we're adding a position that we've not had in my tenure, and it's a significant expense. And so I believe the smarter move would be to hire someone that is capable, right, and has strong skills in the finance area, but not at that senior level. It's a nuance. And, you know, I'll vote against it if it comes to a vote, but I also will respect the fact that you're convinced that it's a need, and will work as best I can with that new person.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any more questions regarding the job description and what has been talked about the CFO recruitment? I don't see anyone or hear anyone. So Mr. Thompson, you have the feedback, so just let us know. I will reach out to the finance committee to see who wants to be part of that if it moves forward. with the recruitment on those individuals. So I will reach out to them and get someone that could sit in during those interview processes.
Great. I'll, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep you informed as to the schedule that we're looking at in terms of the recruitment.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our next item, which is essentially a closed session for pending litigation. So let me read first the disclaimer on going into closed session, and then we'll take a vote, a roll call. So litigation for closed session: when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when a public body finds that an action is probable imminent, in which the case basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of a closed meeting. So can I get a motion and a second to go into close? Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Schultz, thank you.
Can I also add a comment, Mr. Chairman? I'd like to request that we add a personnel matter to this closed session as well, if that's appropriate.
Yes, we can certainly do so. So we're going into, there's a motion to go into closed session for pending litigation and our personnel to go into closed session. So there's a motion and a second. So I'm going to take roll call. Bear with me here while I pull the list. So we'll take roll call. So myself, yes. Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Girl.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Butita.
Yes.
Mr. Fiducia.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.